The information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
We need a revolution. There's only one solution. I need somebody to show me the love. We need a revolution.
Hello, how you doing? Welcome to the revolution, to the health revolution, the freedom revolution. There's so much good stuff going on. You know, this is Inform Life Radio on 1150 AM KKNW and CHD TV, and I'm your host, Bernadette Pajer. But this revolution not only is bringing us these amazing changes that are so fantastic, it's making us run into roadblocks. And I don't want people to get discouraged when they begin to see corruption and things that, like, holy cow, you know, what's going on? That's been going on for how long? Just know that light, the light of truth, is beginning to shine on things that have been hidden far too long. And this is part of the healing process, okay? So take that moment to, you know, get a little upset, but then just realize now that you know about it, you can do something about it, right? You can take action. The time for being complacent and compliant are over. The time for learning and taking action is right here, right now. And you're going to feel really good this new year in 2026 when you pick what your mission is and you begin to every day do a little something to move toward that goal in your own personal mission. So the views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of CHD TV or KKNW, and we're not giving legal or medical advice. We're just bringing you information that we feel you would really like to know as the first step toward exploring more and really so you can make informed decisions in your life. Every week on Substack, Informed Choice Washington has a great Substack, and they link to the recording of the show. And also in the show notes, they will give you links to some of the things we've referenced here today so that you can quickly access them if you want to look up what we've been talking about and go down your own rabbit hole. That's so important. If you haven't yet joined Informed Choice WA and you are in Washington State, just go to informedchoicewa.org. You can sign up for free. It is a nonprofit organization that educates and advocates for scientific integrity in public health policy, in parental rights, religious rights, constitutional rights, and health freedom rights. So if you want to be part of that movement and meet other people in your tribe, sign up for free. If you can drop a little something in the donation bucket, we so much appreciate that. That keeps this hour of radio on the air every week and helps support the good work that the volunteers of Informed Choice Washington perform. If you want to give and make yourself feel not quite so guilty about those Amazon purchases that you're making, go to informedchoicewa.org homepage, and there's going to be a link there to Amazon. And if you click on that before you go do your purchasing, a little bit of something comes back to as a donation to Informed Choice Washington. It is an easy way for you to give, and it might make you feel a little bit better about some of those Amazon purchases. It's helping assuage my guilt a little bit for continuing to use, you know, platforms such as that. But, you know, sometimes they're the only ones who have what you're looking for. What can you do? All right. On with the show. We have got a great show today. We are talking about chemtrails, geoengineering. And my co-host today is new at co-hosting. I want to bring on Chris Lane. Welcome, Chris, for your first time co-hosting Inform Life Radio. I think you're still muted. If you can unmute yourself there, sir.
I'm ready to go now. I'm ready to go.
I'm so glad to have you. Now, Chris is a longtime member of Informed Choice Washington. He's one of the very active ones, shows up at meetings. He stays on top of the subjects that we cover. And, you know, you always have something interesting to say about the subject. So I'm so excited to have you on. And maybe this will be the beginning of people getting to know you.
All right. Pleased to be here, Bernadette.
Excellent. Yeah. And this is a subject that you followed a bit, and you know some of the science far better than I do. And our guest today is the author of a brand new book. In fact, I've got a copy, I guess, before it's actually out. It comes out next week. Chemtrails Exposed, a new Manhattan project by Peter A. Kirby. And with that, let's bring Peter A. Kirby onto the show. Welcome to Inform Life Radio.
Oh, thanks for having me, Bernadette and Chris.
I'm just so thrilled to have you on the show here. Now, we are supposed to be joined by a representative from Washington State who is carrying a bill that addresses some of the concerns you raise in this book. He has not joined us yet. I do hope he is able to get logged in, so we'll watch for that.
Yeah, and I'd like to note that a bill banning weather modification in the western states is particularly significant for a couple of reasons. One, because there haven't been any state bills in the western states thus far that I know of. It's all been eastern and sort of maybe Central America. It's a different region, but sort of center of the country stuff. But the other reason is that it's the western states that have practiced more of the weather modification, because the traditional cloud seeding industry is geared towards producing more rainfall. And the western half of the country has practiced it more because, we have these periods of drought, and there's less rainfall generally in the western half of the country than the eastern half of the country. The eastern half of the country usually has a problem of too much rain, too much water.
Yeah.
And a problem of too little water in the west. So it's very significant that Mr. Chase is involved in this bill in Washington.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if he doesn't able to connect with us, we'll try to connect you too, so that you can be a good resource for him. Here in Tennessee, I think it was 2 years ago now, we did pass a geoengineering ban bill. It doesn't yet have teeth, as is the way a lot of times as you first pass the idea, because it doesn't come with a fiscal note. And then you have to follow up.
These bills have been evolving.
Yes.
The first one didn't have teeth. This is correct. And, a lot of people like to jump on that and say, oh, look, it didn't have teeth. Yeah, but the next one did. Because this is a whole evolutionary process.
Yes.
Where, each state looks at what the previous state did, and they say, okay, we like that part. We don't like those parts. We want to put this type of stuff in. So, the next state that passed anything was Florida. And then the next state that a lot of people don't know about was Missouri.
Fantastic.
They passed a bill as well. That's as far as I know. There might be, as far as I know, there's been 3 so far: Tennessee, Florida, and Missouri.
And let's hope Washington can join them. That would be pretty cool. It's a tough call there, although it's a heavily Democrat state. They too tend to get on issues having to do with the environment. So maybe it will play well there. I really hope so. So, Peter, could you tell us a little bit about the backstory of your life that led you to draft this book and kind of find yourself on the national, if not the global stage? How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to get a little frightening, really, because I just had this post on X that suddenly, over the course of yesterday and today, now it suddenly has 4 million views. It was this... it was this story I did about the Bush family and their implications and all of this. It's a story. I mean, this is stuff that's in my book. I did a whole series of videos and articles last year, or was it last year? Oh gosh, the time is just flying. No, it was actually 2024.
Yeah.
And I saw that the state bills were starting to go through, and I said to myself, okay, it's time to resurrect all the stuff that you've done, because I had already put everything away. I had finished the second edition of my self-published book in 2020. And so it wasn't until 2024 when I saw that bill pass in Tennessee. And it was one of those things where I kind of like scroll over it on my phone. Oh, good, they passed a bill. And I'm like, what? Bill banning geoengineering in Tennessee? And then my brain started working. I'm thinking, you better, spruce up your operations here. Because I had already put that to bed and gone on to other books and stuff. I had already figured all that out. Like, I knew what it was. I had perfect clarity on it. So anyway, so things are going crazy. The book's coming out. I got this interview today. I got Coast to Coast AM on Monday night, and then I'm doing Maha Action. I guess Tony's going to be there on Wednesday. That's a big show if people don't know.
Yeah, I tune into that each week. Yeah, if people just search for Maha Action and you can find their website and you can sign up to get alerts for every Wednesday. They have these great meetings with amazing guests. So you might have felt like you learned all you needed to know about the subject, but the world had barely heard you and they want more. But
I
tell
knew
me,
that
as
they wanted more. You know, people underestimate this issue.
they do, and it looks like he's going to be joining us, which is fantastic. So, but tell us as he logs on here, what's your journey in life? What did you do for a profession? Are you a writer? Are you an investigative writer on science issues? What?
You know, I really what I am is just an artist. I'm just an artist. I decided when I was 12 years old that I just wanted to be an artist. In fact, it's particularly I wanted to be a filmmaker.
Mm,
And so that's what I've always gone about doing. I've made a lot of videos. I've made a lot of 16 millimeter films, 8 millimeter, worked in a camera store. And, I was just kind of a guy living my life figuring that maybe sometime I'll run into enough money to actually, make things work. Because it's basically impossible to get started in the film business unless you got some kind of connections or a lot of money or something. Anyway,
yeah.
I had dreams and I just didn't want to follow anybody else's path. I just wanted to make my own stuff. And I made quite a bit of it. And, I was just working in a pizza place. Mostly I've driven cabs, but I've delivered a lot of pizzas as well.
Yeah,
And
like a lot of artists, you do what you have to do to pay the bills so
yeah,
that
it
you
was
can
just all,
do your art.
BS jobs just to pay the bill, pay the rent and, fund my art. So, I was working at a pizza place and one night my buddy, as we were cleaning up, he says, I don't know how the subject came up, but my buddy said, I don't know what happened on 9/11, but I know that a plane didn't hit the Pentagon. And
Yeah,
this was in 2009.
yeah.
So the 9/11 thing happened in 2001. So this was 8 years after the fact. I was totally ignorant to all this stuff. I
Ah,
I didn't know that there was any problem with it at all. I just believed the official story and, the way
mhm.
that the media presented it was the truth and, that's was my position. And so when he said that, I said I didn't make a fuss about it at the time, but I just went home and searched 9/11 Pentagon, an image search.
Mhm.
And the image that came up was an aerial shot of the Pentagon with a hole in the side of the building, a symmetrical hole that was maybe, 40 or 50 feet across,
Mhm.
barely any debris. The damage was completely inconsistent with a airliner having hit the Pentagon. And so I looked into it and I found that the official story was false. And I said to myself, okay, they got over that one on me. What else have they been lying about? So I turned to the new media. I mean, I figured this isn't going to be a one-off event. I mean, if they pulled that one off, like the biggest terrorist attack ever in the history of the world, and it was just there was it's so much riddled with so much fraud. So many holes in it. It's like a block of Swiss cheese, and so that this is not a one-off thing. So I turned to the new media. At the time, the new media was tiny. I
Mhm.
mean, this was at a time when like forum websites were really hot. And, there was just like Alex Jones and forum websites, and that's about it. But, that's what I turned to. And there were other sources, people had posted articles, people had posted comments and things. I was just trolling the web and finding all these different stories. And chemtrails was just one of them.
Mhm.
And when I first came across it, I said to myself, no, why would they do that? And, that doesn't make any sense. You're destroying everything with that. That's one of the worst things that you can do to a people and a country is just, spray stuff out of planes, probably toxic stuff out of the plane. So it didn't make any sense to me because I thought, well, they're killing the golden goose here. I mean, America is a thing that produces all the best stuff in the world. And, why would they be destroying the whole country with this? Didn't make any sense to me, but it planted the seed.
Mhm.
And I said to myself, okay, they say that they're spraying things out of planes. So I'm going to start looking for these because, most of us go through our lives down here, right? We got
Yeah.
this, we're doing this, we're talking to somebody, we're driving a car, we're, looking out the window. We're not up here
Mhm.
generally. And
Mhm.
so, I started looking up
Mhm.
and I started looking for these lines in the sky. And, it didn't take long until I saw them. First, I saw, little pieces and like maybe that's one of them and this type of stuff. But then you see the big ones that go from horizon to horizon and stuff like that. It was kind of difficult because I was living in San Francisco at the time, which has a lot of cloud cover.
Hmm.
You get basically just a cloud covered sky most of the time. But I eventually did see the big lines in the sky, and it was like getting punched in the gut, because I knew as soon as I saw that this was bad.
Yeah.
And this was particulate matter, and this was completely unacceptable to me. And my first thought was, well, I'll just go online and post some things about it, and people will say, hey, you're right, I saw those lines in the sky. And then there'll be like a grassroots momentum viral thing going, and and everything will work out, and in the course of a few months or something like that. Little did I know that it was the biggest scientific effort in history, and that the globalists are hell-bent on these spraying programs.
Oh my goodness, what you fell into, that's something. So thank you for sharing sort of how it all came to your attention.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and bring on now, it looks like Representative Rob Chase has joined us from Washington State. If we want to bring him on, welcome Representative Chase to Inform Life Radio.
Oh, thank you. Nice to be here. I don't
It's-
see, I guess it's too sunny to see the Capitol dome.
Oh no, we can see
We
it.
see it. We don't see it
Absolutely.
very
Okay,
good,
great.
but we see it.
Yes,
It's
we can
official
definitely.
then.
Oh, we can see
Yeah.
it. Just kidding.
So I'm so glad that you can join us. You've got a bill that is relevant to this amazing book that Peter Kirby has written that we're going to be discussing here. I'm going to do a little personal aside here. I first met you, Representative Chase. I believe it might have been your first year of office. It was during COVID, and I reached out to you, Javier Figueroa, and we had redrafted pandemic law in the state of Washington because to make it so they couldn't do all that foolishness moving forward. And you very generously carried the bill. Of course, it didn't get heard, but we weren't being heard doing anything. So I applaud you though for always being the one willing to stand up and do what's right, and to take on a bill that others won't try because it's the right thing to do. So thank you for that.
hmm No, I try to call them as I see them, and you only live once, and although I believe twice, really, but I always heard one of the biggest deathbed regrets was you hadn't taken enough chances. So, you never know, you might not be here tomorrow. So, I guess make hay while the sun shines if you can. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, and in Spokane, the newspapers always love roasting me on my different things, but usually they turn out to be right.
Mhm.
I ran for Congress in 2002 as a libertarian, and the YouTube is still up there, and pretty much everything I said came true. And
Oh, good.
but I'd heard, especially in our thing, I'd heard several ladies over the years say, their child was just fine until they got their vaccinations, and then they went autistic. And
Mhm.
I saw enough evidence of that, and then so I was glad to introduce that. But I was here, actually took Matt Shea's place, and
Mhm.
but I was never allowed on the floor in 2 years until the last 5 minutes. Then I got to go see where I would have sat if I'd been on the floor, but they kept me isolated. And then I would say my own party came after me.
Wow.
Not all of them, but a few, enough that they took me out for the next session. But then I got reelected again this last
Mhm.
year. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, these shenanigans are happening everywhere, even here in Tennessee. All is not what it seems, but that's why it's so important for citizens to be active here. Chris, before we move forward, do you have any questions for either of our guests?
No, I was going to comment on Peter. It's amazing how many times you point out to people that clouds don't make X's in the sky, and they just have zero concept of what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the UN is coming up with new names for chemtrail clouds. If you didn't know.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
long, unpronounceable words, I won't even try to pronounce them. They're in my book.
Yeah. Contrails don't start and stop either. So.
Yeah,
Little
that's
clue.
in his book too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do explain to us, Peter, the difference between a contrail and a chemtrail.
Well, a contrail results from low temperature and high humidity and unadulterated jet fuel. These are things that actually happen. We all saw them as kids. and they disappear very quickly. It appears as a very small tail on a plane that is maybe, 10, 20 lengths of a plane as it flies high in the sky on a cold day. And now, we see lines coming out of planes that stretch from horizon to horizon on a warm summer's day,
Hmm.
and it's obviously particulate matter. Chemtrail is an amalgamation of the words chemical and trail. And so anytime, there's a plane that's leaving particulate matter, we call it chemtrails. The word chemtrails, the origin of it, the first mention I ever saw was in a Air Force Academy training manual for a chemistry class called they called it chemtrails. Now I should note that they call their yearbooks for those Air Force training academies, they call their yearbooks contrails. Every year, all the kids who graduate from these, or young men and women who graduate from this Air Force Academy, they have a yearbook and they call it contrails. So, it's kind of a play on words. I don't know if that manual that they produced and called chemtrails really had anything to do with what we're seeing in the sky, but that is nonetheless, it's the first use of the word that I have been able to find. I think it was 1991.
Your research is phenomenal in the book. I mean, the citations are amazing, and you go back really through history of how this evolved. And before we came on the air here, you were talking about how the fact that it's sort of an amalgamation. People invent things and they have ideas of wanting to, say, improve life for human beings, but things get kind of co-opted and changed and altered and perverted along the way by people who have power and shouldn't. So explain, when we look up in the sky and we see these weird patterns, how could it be that many military jets are doing it? Now, you explained that it's not that the airline industry is being used as well as the military. Explain that a little bit.
Well, they're all under the same system. And these systems of air traffic control were all developed by a certain corporation called the MITRE Corporation. And so, the MITRE Corporation built all of the major aerospace command centers in the country. There's one under the Pentagon. There's a Strategic Air Command in Nebraska, and then NORAD, and there might be some smaller ones. But the MITRE Corporation built all of them. And the MITRE Corporation developed all of the leading air traffic control systems, like the software and the hardware and all this. So there's one company that's behind controlling all of the air traffic in North America, basically.
Is this an American company?
Yes. And they are still around today. They call themselves the MITRE Corporation. They inherited something called the SAGE system, which was a system that was designed to detect incoming Russian bombers. Well, first it depends. There was a switch over in the history. First, this system, if there's a whole backstory to it before it was turned over to the MITRE Corporation. And originally it was developed to detect incoming bombers, like planes that might be coming over to bomb America. This is during the Cold War, bomb America with nuclear weapons. But at a certain point, they had to switch over to trying to guard against intercontinental ballistic missiles, because that's where the technology went. As of today, we don't expect planes to come over from Russia and drop bombs. If such, God forbid, such a thing would happen, we would expect intercontinental ballistic missiles. So, but anyway, there was, they were developing the system. It became like a big snafu. And they at some point, they realized they had to create a whole nother organization to handle this, because they had just worked themselves into this quagmire. And so they created this MITRE Corporation to carry forth this mantle of, controlling the airspace over all of North America, and, radar systems and all kinds of stuff that they've been involved in. So, and this applies to civilian passenger and freight aircraft, as well as military aircraft. I mean, and then, there's really only one company that produces planes in America. Jumbo jets, as far as I know, it's Boeing.
Mhm.
Sorry to say, you guys are in Washington, Boeing's headquarters, but so Boeing dollars to donuts has got to be in. I mean, they are involved in the development of this weapon system, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit because I'm not blaming anybody who's been involved in the development of this weapon system. I'm blaming people who have directed this weapon system against the American people. You know what I mean? If you work at Boeing, you don't necessarily know anything about any of this. I mean, nobody knew anything, and nobody knew what they were building in the 1940s during the original Manhattan Project until the bombs went off, right? And then they all said, "Oh, that's what we were working on," because of compartmentalization. And the CIA, which the evidence indicates is extremely implicated in this whole thing, they have perfected the art of compartmentalization, and they continue to practice it. They've been practicing it for a very long time, and they are very good at it. And so there's lots and lots of people, at least thousands of people that are involved in this thing in one way or the other, but they don't necessarily know about it. So you could have let's talk about the commercial freight and passenger airplanes. You could have those things. First of all, they can all be remote controlled. All of them can be operated as drones. All jumbo jets are built with that capability these days, and they've been built with that capability for a long time, for decades now. It sounds kind of weird that a jumbo jet might be remotely controlled because you picture the pilot there in the pilot seat, flying the plane and everything, but they got all kinds of backup systems, and they can be just straight remotely controlled. So these planes can be remotely controlled, and the spraying can be remotely activated. So a pilot can be flying a commercial jet airliner and have no knowledge that there's stuff coming out the back because these things are activated remotely. You know what I'm saying? I think it's all actually run by AI, but it would be run from some type of command center, and I think AI basically runs all of it, and that's kind of a whole nother barrel of monkeys to get into. But what I'm getting at basically is that you have the resources and the technology are all available, and it can all be made to work through compartmentalization. Oh, wait, I'm not hearing you, Bernadette.
Oh, sorry, I turned off my mic so I could drink my tea. What is the goal? What do they hope to achieve by spraying these pollutants in the air and dimming the sky? Do they really what is their goal that they think they're going to achieve with all of this?
Well, if they ever have to explain themselves, they say that they're saving us from global warming, which of course is a bunch of BS. And I have a whole chapter in my book called what's it called? What did Al Gore call it? He said it was an inconvenient truth. So what it actually is a convenient lie, and that's the name of my chapter in my book. And but so I debunk all that. If you look at the history of it, it's just horrific. The whole thing, it's just another establishment top-down AstroTurf job, all from the UN and everything, and the Rockefellers and the Council on Foreign Relations and all this. But I have a chapter in my book also called Motives, which gives the actual reasons for all of this. And
I haven't gotten to that yet.
Primarily, it was built as a weapons system.
Wow.
Geophysical warfare.
All right.
There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on, but I want to hear from Rob and his bill. It's very important what's going on in Washington State there.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Spokane Valley. I represent Spokane Valley, but I grew up as a kid in Seattle, and I played a lot of baseball, and I was a good hitter, but I was a terrible fielder, so I was in right field most of the time. So that gave me time to stare up at the sky a lot, cloud formations and everything. So I remember I'd see these contrails and with all the air traffic over Seattle, but they would dissipate in about 5 minutes, or so. And but then noticing these what they call chemtrails, they're up in the sky for hours, and well, why would things change? And I was asked by actually, it's people on the right and the left to introduce a bill because no one else had on this, just to get the discussion going. And I had watched Robert Kennedy Jr. interviewed Dane Wigington, and Robert Kennedy Jr. is probably my favorite politician now because I think he is a truth seeker. And so he said, there's this a lot of nanoparticles of aluminum that are in the forests of Washington State that really there's no reason for them to be there. They're not naturally occurring, and that was kind of one clue. Plus the fact that there's like a gag order for everybody on this thing. Which, well, why would they do that unless they were worried about something getting out? So if someone is stonewalling you, there's usually a reason for it. I've found out in life. So I just hope that they can get to the truth, and I'm not totally dogmatic about it, but there's enough that I feel I needed to introduce the bill. And I looked at, I think maybe it was Tennessee and Florida that had bills, but they didn't have like any stiff penalties in them. So I thought, well, if they're doing this, we need to get we need to get some stiff penalties, have some teeth in it anyway. So maybe they won't do it. Or also, it would get the discussion going. I didn't ask anybody to co-sponsor it with me because I really doubt that very many of the people in the legislature even know about this, or if they do, they've already have the knee-jerk reaction that it's just a conspiracy theory, and I don't want to. I'll take all the heat myself for it, and it's kind of like Robert Kennedy again. I read his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, and I said in the floor of the legislature, I think I'm the only person that actually read his book, and no one disagreed with me. So it's funny. You are what you read a lot of times. So I think a lot of stuff is important, especially for a legislator representing the people. And our duty is to represent them. Their duty is to, of course, pay us, but also to inform us. And if they're concerned about something, and I think it's legitimate, I will definitely try to put out a bill on it.
Yeah, Rob, if I may, I can hand you some ammunition pretty easily. Of course, reading my book would be a good idea.
Yeah, I would love to read your book. In fact, I'll probably order it right after we're done here.
Great. But, just off the top, what came to mind is that if you're looking to, prove the case very easily to people and get them on the right track, what you do is you tell them there are 28 peer-reviewed journal-published articles by a world-famous PhD, and at the time, a sitting director of the Monroe County, Florida Department of Health. 28 of these things where they go on about the fact that we're being sprayed with coal fly ash, which is the substance that we're being sprayed with. The ash that rises from burning coal. It's a toxic waste byproduct of the coal-fired power plant industry, and they go on and on about the environmental impacts of all this in 28 peer-reviewed journal articles. So, I cover that extensively in my book. It's in the biological impacts chapter.
Yeah.
And I can, he has a website where all these papers are posted, and he's one of the most banned and censored individuals. My friend, Dr. Marvin Herndon, PhD, he has a Wikipedia listing. He's world famous, and he has advised me, along with a woman who had a Q clearance at the Department of Energy. So
Well, when I was a teenager, in my 20s, I read a lot of sci-fi. So I liked Kurt Vonnegut Jr., and I was reading a Playboy interview with him in the 70s, and he said his brother had invented the silver iodide crystals for maybe the Korean War, World War II, way back then. And then they were using it in Vietnam, of course, to rain on the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
That was very secret.
True then. And why wouldn't they just keep, using it for evil, the deep state purposes if they could do it. So there's a lot of statistics that saying something's going on, I think, with this. And like the Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, when I was a kid, we'd all have Thanksgiving, and we'd some of my aunts and uncles had voted for Johnson, some had voted for Goldwater, and we'd eat turkey and watch football. It wasn't like, oh, I hate you, I'll never speak to you again, So you kind of wonder what they're putting out, that's causing all of this. And I think what they do is they keep us fighting with each other, and meanwhile they're fleecing us behind our backs.
Yeah. Well, this is an issue that goes beyond political boundaries. you know, and I wrote the book in that spirit. You couldn't tell what side I'm on from reading the book, because
Right.
you know, really the only place that I espouse my political views is in my Truth Social channel. Other than that, on my Rumble channel and in my books, on wherever else I might be posting. Of course, I'm wearing the hat, but you know, I don't consider this Republican. I am a Republican, but I don't consider the Maha movement Republican necessarily. I'm just going with it because it's where the vitality is. I mean, there's no vitality on the left. You can't promote this issue as a Democrat. There are no Democrats promoting it. You know, can you name one Democrat that is, you know, like behind all this? I mean, maybe you can, Rob, because you have hands-on experience.
No, I don't think I don't
either.
think very many Republicans are, at least nobody co-sponsored my bill, you know, unless there might have
Right.
been too, I wouldn't say afraid, but too cautious to, you know.
Yeah. As an outsider, as a citizen advocate, I often feel, I mean, you see the fear, the pressure. It's crazy. And we need more people with moral courage. Hey, Chris, you have a question. This might be a good time to ask that question about Representatives Rob Chase's bill. I've got it pulled up here. It's House Bill 2222. If anybody wants to go read it to see, and you do have some teeth, Representative Chase, it's got like $1 million penalty. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah.
Big
I mean,
fine.
if they're doing this, they really need to, you know, well, for instance, I understand that, you know, when we were younger, my generation, you know, when they did studies, our sperm count was a certain amount, and now it's like half that. Well, why are they spraying saltpeter along with everything else? You know, for population growth, you never know what crazy agenda they have.
Oh,
It just
that
doesn't
could-
add up.
They've been telling us about their agenda for a long time. I mean, you have lots of elites of the world saying, "Hey, there's too many people. We got to call you guys. We're
Yeah.
going to kill you." That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Pull up
And
Bill
now they're
Gates.
going ahead and doing it. You know, I mean, believe them when they tell you that they're going to do this.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, lots of good stuff. I was curious, especially when you mentioned Wigington, and he's very high on the measurement of aluminum particulates, especially in their forest area in, I believe he's in Northern California.
Mount Shasta.
And do we have anyone in Washington that's actively monitoring this? Do we have a sense of how much of these metal particulates are coming down on us?
Not that I know of. You know, this is like a grassroots bunch of people that just look up at the sky and know something's going on there. And
In
they want
California-
answers. And I said it's not
They
only
were.
I have a group of say people on the right that I meet with that are my friends, but I also have a group of people on the left that are all worried about this too. And we've come together on common cause issues, you know, and try to you know,
Nice.
have our resource. I love common cause issues
Yeah.
because at least you know you're probably right on it.
There's
Yeah.
there's lots of grassroots Democrats, just like normal people, that are into this issue. Dane, I would consider on the political left, and one of his cohorts as well, a guy by the name of Mauro Oliveri. I interviewed him on my show. I consider him a friend, and you know, they're as far as I can tell, they're, you know, you could basically call them leftists. But, you know, it makes no difference to me as long as we're united on this issue. My relationship with Dane has never been better. And, you know, I think that, you know, we need to cut through all the politics and stuff. You mentioned that Washington State is not monitoring the air. This was the first thing that I thought when I became aware of this. And this was what got me started in the new media, first made my first bone in the new media. I thought to myself, okay, I'm here in California. The government does absolutely everything. Of course, they're monitoring the air, right? And so I found the California Air Resources Board, and lo and behold, they were monitoring the air for toxins. They said, no, none of this should be in the air. They classified aluminum and barium as toxins and said, none of that should be in the air. And then you can go on their website to another place where you can generate charts of the amount of aluminum and barium in the air. And lo and behold, there it was, in elevated levels and rising. So I took screenshots and I did a story about it. Next thing you know, they're taking all that down. They say, oh no, that's not the data. That's not the data. We have the real data. They gave the data to me and one other tiny little environmentalist group called Environmental Voices. So the
Mhm.
data that they said was the actual data went out to maybe 20 people tops. They never.
Well, they
posted
may be
it was
monitoring
new
us, but
data
they're
on the
they're
web.
not being public about what's actually the results are.
No,
I
they're
think.
covering it up is what they're doing.
Yeah, and I was
They're-
Spokane County Treasurer for 8 years, I think. And one morning I came in, there's all the crisscrosses above the courthouse there, and I thought, okay, I've got standing, So I called up Geiger Field. I said, what's going on here, And they said, well, you have to call Fairchild Air Force. So I called them, and he had this kind of like ha 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 fake little
Mhm.
laugh. We get this
Mhm.
all the time. It's ice crystals, Don't worry,
Right.
nothing to worry about, And
Yeah.
so that's probably in his list of things he
Well,
has to say to
yeah, I
people.
mean, they're behaving kind of like the conventional cloud seeding industry has behaved over the decades. They have an industry association called the Weather Modification Association, something like that. They've put out press releases addressing concerns that people might have about silver iodide, which is the standard substance that they disperse in the conventional cloud seeding industry. And although there have been no long-term studies done, they just say, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's not a problem. Like there's no problem here." Because they have a conflict of interest, so they know.
Yeah.
That's how much sense they make.
The way they like to word things is, oh, we have no data that it's harmful, because they've never looked to see if it's harmful. So they just say no data that it's harmful. I mean,
But I was actually able to uncover a 1969 Bureau of Reclamation report that raised concerns. I mean, I read a stack of weather modification documents a yard high before I found this thing. They're usually talking about, oh, well, we're producing more rain with cloud seeding, so there's going to be more rain over here and less rain over there. So you might get more vegetation over here, less vegetation over there. The animals might migrate here and there and stuff like that. Those are going to be the biological impacts. Of course, they completely do not even address the toxicology of it. But I found one document from 1969 where they state in the document, to this point, there have been no long-term studies done as to the environmental effects of silver iodide. And then they show that silver iodide is toxic to fish. Sticklebacks were the fish that they were talking about, and even more toxic to microorganisms.
oh dear. And that gets everything, because microorganisms live in animals and us. And if
the basis of life.
And Peter, when you're talking about cloud seeding, my understanding is that is much more local water districts, power districts, versus what then the other form of it, which would be the long range, federal programs or military programs that you're addressing.
Yeah, what I call the New Manhattan Project and the conventional cloud seeding industry are two separate and distinct things. They do not overlap.
So, and that was kind of my question for Rob also, is how much of this will we be able to control within the state of Washington, with the local water seeding, and versus, military action that's flying far above anything that the state would.
Well, this is just a first step to even get a bill there. So hopefully people will watch your program and put pressure on that committee to hear the bill, and then Peter, can come, you guys can all come and testify, and who knows, maybe they'll get a few thousand people writing in, please hear this bill, Yeah, I think they do pay attention to things like that, but if nobody does it, then it's just gonna, come to a dead end.
And Rob, I'd like to address the naysayers. There's a lot of naysayers out there that I'd rather not name, who say that, oh, all these state bills, it's all the big hoax. They're just pulling your chain. They can't enforce any of this. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter, because we're building a consensus. We're building a grassroots movement that can be and these bills can be enforced on the federal level. And there is already a federal bill. We're getting input from the people. We're getting input from the states as to what we want to see done. Then it can be done at the federal level.
Yeah,
you see,
people just have to get out of their chairs, and go their laptop and
these things are
important. It's we the people. If we don't care anymore, we've lost our republic.
We're building this.
Yeah,
this is a process,
and we should be concerned about. I think we owe it to not leave a worse planet to the next generation than the one we were born into,
Mhm.
and that's something, whether we have children or not, that we owe it to posterity to keep liberty going. In fact, I have a friend, he's a Ukrainian pastor, and he said, you never love liberty so much as when you don't have it. And I think we're kind of headed in that direction.
I think most people are going to regret that they didn't fight harder when all this is over. When the new
Mhm.
Manhattan Project is dead and gone, most people are going to regret that they didn't fight hard enough against it.
Yeah. And Solzhenitsyn said that, we should have, if we could have seen what was coming, we should have, attacked those guys coming up our stairways. If enough of us had done that,
Yeah.
we could have turned it around.
Peter, what do you see if we don't soon stop what they're doing? What do you see like 10 years from now? How will that be impacting people's lives, their health, that sort of thing?
10 years from now is just and if this spraying goes on for another 10 years, it's just horrific beyond belief. I mean, I'm starting to become like Dane Wigington because I see everything dying around me. Everything is dying. The forests are dying. I've never seen so many dead trees. The ones that are still alive are kind of like sparse and kind of like struggling. They got a few dead limbs and stuff. I mean, everything is dying. Like Marvin Herndon says, turn a rock over and see what you see. When I was a kid, if you were able to turn over a big boulder, there'd be a whole ecosystem going on under there. There'd be like big bugs, small bugs, spiders, all kinds of stuff going on. They'd scurry everywhere. Now you turn over a rock, you might see like a couple bugs, no big ones, like not much. And
Can I ask Peter a question?
Yes.
We have what they call this atmospheric river phenomenon, and in Spokane, and I'm getting to be an oldster now. I've never seen floods in the autumn before, and yet before Christmas, usually it's probably maybe 1,000 cubic feet per second going down the Spokane River. We were up to at 50,000 or 60,000 cube for day after day. Where did it all? It's in the spring we have that. You get a big snowpack, and then you get a Chinook wind. It melts a whole bunch off, and you see that then. But I've never seen it like this early in the year before.
Yeah, it's hard to speak about these weather anomalies because they're not telling us what they're doing. And also I'm thinking like they're screwing with stuff so much in the atmosphere that they're probably just kind of clogging up atmospheric systems and sort of making the jet stream less vital and less strong, and sort of just turning everything into one big mess rather than having systems function in the way that they're supposed to function naturally. So it's really difficult for me, especially because I don't have a science background. It's really difficult to me to speak, especially to certain weather anomalies, whether or not we're having more extreme weather, whether or not we're having less extreme weather. That's really difficult to try to pin down. It's not something that I feel like I can speak authoritatively on, but they are messing with the weather. They're using the sprayed particulates and electromagnetic energy from a bunch of different sources. They're just going ahead and doing whatever they want and saying, F you, do something about it is basically their attitude.
And I want you to
Peter, do you have
expound
in
a
your
bit.
book?
On
Sorry
the
for that.
electromagnetic portion, but I have been remiss, Peter. I apologize for our audio only audience. I have not been saying the name of your book. So it's Chemtrails Exposed, a New Manhattan Project. Comes out January 20th. So is that Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Big
And
Tuesday.
you can get it at bookstores everywhere. It's Skyhorse is the publisher.
Yeah. I've seen listings online for Walmart and Target. So
Fantastic.
I'm hoping that they're going to have actual copies of the book on the shelf. They might just be selling it online, but I'd love to go into my local Target and see a copy of my book on the shelf. I don't know. I really doubt they're going to have it in stores. It's probably just going to be an online thing, but the independent bookstores, and Barnes and Noble might very well have it on their shelves. And then an independent bookstore like Powell's, I hear there's a big one in Portland.
Oh yeah, I love the Powells. I did a
in
book
New York.
signing there myself. Not such an important book, just mystery. But
Okay.
and I do encourage people to get your book and read it. And if you find it as informative, I'm not all the way through it myself, but this thing is so fully cited, so full of history to really give you the big picture. I encourage you to tell others about it, but also request the book from your library, because when you make that library request, they will a lot of times go order the book and they will make it available to other people, and that is a great way to make sure that this information stays accessible to all, and plus the purchase helps the author, so it's a win-win all the way around. And are they going to have an audio version of your book?
Yeah, well, the audio book is actually already available. I did a self-published audio book of my self-published edition from 2020, and I struck a deal with Skyhorse. I don't want to get into the details of it, but the audio book is still available. It's been available since I posted it, but
Oh,
it's
great.
it's the self-published edition. So there's still some little rough patches and some things I had to take out and work around. I did a revision for
Okay.
the Skyhorse thing. So it's not the Skyhorse edition is the standard. My self-published edition has some wrinkles in it, but I think you'll still enjoy it. As you can see, if you go to audible.com and type in chemtrails, you'll see my book comes up first and it's got 5 stars. So, people like it.
I love that. And, I just think it's so important to support the individuals who are taking all this time to do a research on such important topics and get the information out there. We need to do what we can to support these individuals. I cannot believe that Nathan has now just given us the 3 minutes heads up. I don't know where the hour went. So I'm going to give a minute to each of our guests here. Rob Chase, Representative Chase, I'll start with you.
Well, like I said, I look forward to ordering Peter's book, as soon as I can here, and then taking the time with all my other books I have going. I usually will read a chapter a day out of about 5 different books I'm doing, and eventually I get to the end of it. But then if I do get called before the committee, I will be armed with the truth and facts and everything that would hopefully impress other people. So who knows where we can go with this? Anything's possible. But do get involved and ask for a hearing, and also order Peter's book and keep watching the show. So I would say thanks a lot, Bernadette, Nathan, and Peter. Good to get in touch with you again, Bernadette, and meeting you too, Nathan and Peter.
Yeah,
Yeah, Rob.
and Chris, this is Chris here. He's new. So
Oh, I thought it was Nathan. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Nathan is the engineer there at the radio station.
Oh, okay.
Behind the scenes, he's our guy. So, and Peter.
Yeah, the people are about to be united in common knowledge here. If you read my book, you will have crystal clarity as to what's going on here. There's a very well-oiled disinformation apparatus that has been doing nothing but confusing the people here. One of the main things is the conflation between the traditional cloud seeding industry and what I call the New Manhattan Project. And I think we're working through that. But there's a whole story here. There's a whole backstory. It's basically my book is a work of science history that shows you the whole development of this whole thing. Now, I've had epiphanies lately as to, who's running it today, where it's being run out of, and all that kind of stuff. That's another show. But, the whole evolution of it and the whole history of the biggest scientific effort in history is in my book. And if you read it, you will have crystal clarity as to what's going on here. This is what the people need right now to put bills through state houses and then put through a big federal bill and end this madness.
Fantastic. Well, that is Peter A. Kirby, Chemtrails Exposed, a New Manhattan Project. Thank you, Peter Kirby, Rob Chase, and Chris Lane for co-hosting. It was so good to have you here. I think that we've wrapped it up. Chris, final word?
Nope, we just started scratching the surface. Peter, I got to get in touch with you, and Rob, I got to come pay you a visit.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, I love this. Everybody finding each other and just plowing ahead. As I said, the light is being shined on a lot of stuff that needs to be revealed. And if we work together, we can get her done. So thanks, everybody. You've been listening to Inform Life Radio on 1150 AM, KKNW, and CHD TV. We will see you next week. Take care.
Informed Choice Washington is a nonprofit organization that advocates for healthy immunity, medical freedom, and fully informed medical consent. The right to make medical choices without coercion is fundamental to our civil liberties and a basic principle in all human rights declarations. To learn more, tune in each Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. to an Informed Life Radio and visit the website informedchoicewa.org. It's time to take a stand for medical freedom. Go to informedchoicewa.org today.
Did you know that solutions containing iodine can inactivate viruses in the nose and throat in 15 seconds? And hydrogen peroxide can do it in under 30 seconds. Decades of studies, including many conducted during COVID, have shown that properly prepared and used nasal spray and gargling solutions can reduce your risk of infection, reduce viral load, reduce symptoms, and reduce transmission of viruses. To learn more, go to healthyimmunitynow.org and check out the EFU Challenge. Why spread fear and infection when nature provides solutions? Go to healthyimmunitynow.org today.
The information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.